Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a truly monumental piece of work. A book that, and I'm not exaggerating here, attempts to explain, well, everything. Everything about why we humans do the things we do. I'm talking about Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death. Now, this book won the Pulitzer Prize back in 1974, just a couple of months after Becker himself passed away, which is pretty poetic when you think about it. It's been called a brave work of electrifying intelligence, and honestly, that barely scratches the surface. What Becker tried to do was create a single, unified theory for all of human motivation. Think about that for a second. One idea to explain our anxieties, our ambitions, our religions, our wars, our art, the whole shebang. It's an incredibly ambitious project. He pulls from psychoanalysis, from Freud, from sociology, philosophy, theology, and weaves it all together into this one brilliant, cohesive, and, let's be honest, pretty terrifying body of thought. And because of that, it can be a really intimidating read. It forces you to look at things we spend most of our lives trying not to look at. It challenges the very stories we tell ourselves about who we are. But here's the thing. Once you grasp its central idea, it's like a key that unlocks the world. You'll start seeing it everywhere, in everything. So, our goal today is to unpack this dense, brilliant work together. We're going to make these revolutionary ideas clear and accessible, so we can really appreciate just how profound they are. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to break Becker's massive theory down into 5 key pieces to really understand how his argument builds. First up, we'll tackle the foundation of it all, the terror of death. Then we'll look at how we try to protect ourselves from that terror through what he called our immortality projects. After that, we hit the big twist, the paradox of heroism, where our solution kind of becomes the problem. That leads us right into a really chilling explanation for why we create evil. And to finish, we're going to bring it all right back home, to you, and ask the big one. What is your heroism?
This right here. This is the question that sits at the absolute core of Ernest Becker's work. Just let that sink in for a minute. Everything. What if your career ambitions, the need to get that promotion, the family you're raising, the art you create, the money you make, your religious faith, your political beliefs? What if all of it, every last bit of it, is just a really, really sophisticated and elaborate defense mechanism? A beautiful, complex, and mostly unconscious distraction that we've all built together to avoid facing one simple, inescapable, and horrifying fact that we are going to die. Becker's entire argument is that this fear, the fear of death, is the primary engine driving almost all of human behavior, from our most beautiful creations to our absolute worst atrocities.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. For Becker, you can't understand people until you understand our relationship with death. This isn't just one fear you can list alongside spiders or public speaking. No, this is the fear, the foundational one that all other anxieties are built on top of. He believed that if you try to explain human motivation without putting this terror front and center, you're just missing the whole point.
Now, the key distinction Becker makes is absolutely crucial. Other animals die, of course, but they aren't haunted by the idea of it. You know, a dog lives in the moment. It's driven by instinct. It doesn't lie awake at night contemplating its own non-existence. But we humans, we are blessed and cursed with self-consciousness. We can remember the past and we can project ourselves into the future. And that amazing ability comes with a terrible price tag. We know, conceptually, that we're going to end. The psychologist William James called this the worm at the core of all our happiness. And Becker, building on thinkers like Kierkegaard and Freud, argues this fear isn't just for some of us, it's for all of us. The psychoanalyst Gregory Zilborg, after decades of clinical practice, put it bluntly, no one is free of the fear of death. He argued it's so powerful, so overwhelming, that for us to even function day to day, it has to be constantly pushed down, repressed. It's like the background radiation of our entire mental lives, a low-level hum of dread we're always trying to tune out.
This right here, this comparison gets to the absolute heart of what Becker called the human paradox. He says we are literally split in two. On one hand, we are symbolic creatures. We have names, we tell stories, we build these vast, complex civilizations. We can think about infinity, about God, about the meaning of the universe. We have this awareness of our own splendid uniqueness. In our minds, we are basically gods. But, and this is the big but, we are trapped inside a physical body, A body that, as Becker so vividly puts it, aches and bleeds and will decay and die. A body that reminds us every single day that we are animals. He uses this unforgettable, kind of shocking phrase, we are gods with anuses. We can soar to the highest heavens in our imagination, but we're still tethered to this piece of meat that is fated to rot in the ground and disappear forever. And it's living with this impossible, terrifying split, this soaring mind inside this decaying body that defines our existence.
So, if we're all walking around with this constant low-grade terror simmering just below the surface, how do we do it? How do we manage to get out of bed, go to work, fall in love, let alone build cities or compose music? Well, Becker says we do it by building this incredibly elaborate psychological fortress to protect ourselves from that reality. So let's take a look at the blueprints for that fortress.
The very first line of defense is a personal one. Becker borrows a term from the psychoanalyst Wilhelm Reich and calls it our character armor. This is, for all intents and purposes, your personality. It's your specific style of being in the world. Think about it. As a little kid, the world is this huge, overwhelming, terrifying place. You have to develop a strategy to deal with it. You build up a set of habits, beliefs, and defenses that make it feel manageable, that make you feel like you have some control and self-worth. It's what Becker calls a vital lie. It's a fiction, but it's one we absolutely need to function. The problem is, it comes at a cost. In Becker's words, we repress our bodies to purchase a soul that time cannot destroy. We essentially trim ourselves down. We sacrifice a certain openness to the world, a certain amount of life itself, in order to feel safe from the terror of living and dying. It's like building a little shell around yourself. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps you contained.
But here's the thing. That personal character armor, it's not strong enough. It's just too fragile to hold back the terror of the entire cosmos all on its own. A personality, no matter how confident or well put together, feels pretty small and arbitrary when it's staring into the infinite void. So we have to move to our second, much more powerful line of defense. And this one is societal. We look outside of our own small selves for a bigger, more durable source of meaning and value. We plug into what Becker calls a cultural hero system. And this is where we learn the rules to the game of life that our culture has set up for us. A game that promises us a shot at being a hero.
So what exactly is this hero system? You can think of it like a culture's menu of meaning. It's the whole web of values, beliefs, and goals that a society offers its people as a way to earn significance. Every single culture in history, Becker says, has to provide this. It's a symbolic game plan that basically says, look, if you do these things, if you achieve these goals, your life will matter. You will have been part of something bigger than yourself, something that will outlast your physical body. It's a system for achieving what Becker calls ersatz immortality. Ersatz meaning a substitute, a stand-in for the real thing. It's the culturally approved path to feeling like your life has cosmic significance, not just creaturely significance.
Now, this might still sound a little abstract, but these immortality projects are the most concrete things in our lives. Just look at this list. Accumulating a huge fortune, that's not really about buying more stuff. It's about building an empire with your name stamped on it, a legacy of power that lasts long after you're gone. Writing a great book or painting a masterpiece, you are literally trying to make your consciousness, your ideas, immortal. Having a family and raising children, it's about continuing your bloodline, your name, your DNA into the future. Building a temple for a god, or, in our more secular world, furthering scientific progress, creating a global information society, all of these are immortality projects. They are the vehicles our culture gives us for our heroic drive, our deep need to prove that we are more than just food for worms.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, the terror of death. And we've laid out the solution, these immortality projects. Seems like a pretty good system, right? Well, here is where the whole thing takes a tragic and terrifying turn. This is the paradox. Our quest for heroism, the very thing we invented to save ourselves, becomes one of the main sources of our suffering and our evil.
Now, let's be absolutely clear about what Becker is saying here. This quest for heroism, it isn't a hobby. It's not a side quest. For Becker, this is the central organizing principle of human life. It is the main task. He writes that we're mostly ignorant of what we really want and need because we disguise this fundamental drive. We call it ambition,
or being successful, or leaving the world a better place. But underneath all those socially acceptable labels is the same raw, desperate need to feel that our one, small life has significance on a cosmic scale.
This quote is just absolutely chilling, and it gets right to the core of the paradox. Our immortality projects, whatever they are, become the bedrock of our self-worth. They are how we measure our own value. So if our project is validated by the people around us, by our culture, we feel heroic, we feel significant, we feel safe from that terror of oblivion. But if that project is threatened, or if it's discredited, our entire psychological world falls apart. We are faced with the terror of being, as he says, nothing. And that feeling of insignificance is so unbearable, so much worse than physical pain, that we will do anything to avoid it. We will kill for our cause, and we will die for our cause, because the fear of being nothing becomes even greater than the fear of death itself.
And this leads us to what is maybe Becker's most devastating and important conclusion: the evil that humans do to each other, the wars, the genocides, the inquisitions, all the horrors that fill our history books. Where does it come from? Becker says it doesn't come from our animal side. It doesn't come from some beast within. It comes from our need to be heroes. It is the direct result of our immortality projects smashing into each other.
This is such a crucial, counterintuitive point. It's not our selfishness or our greed that's the main driver of large-scale evil. It's our altruism. It's our noblest, most godlike ambitions. It's our desire to be good, our desire to serve a cause that's bigger than we are, our desire to purify the world, that, in Becker's words, turn the world into a charnel house. Think about that. It's a profoundly disturbing idea. It means the road to hell isn't just paved with good intentions. It's engineered and built out of them.
The logic here is just brutal and clear. If my group's source of meaning, my God, my nation, my political ideology, is the one true path to immortality, then your competing hero project isn't just a different opinion. It's not just a disagreement. It is a fundamental, existential threat. Your very existence proves that there are other ways to live, which cheapens my way. It threatens to invalidate my entire life's meaning. As Becker says, human conflicts are life and death struggles. My gods against your gods, my immortality project against your immortality project. When these systems of meaning collide, the only way to prove that mine is right is to destroy yours. And that's how you get war, scapegoating, and genocide.
And Becker gives us a very clear psychological blueprint for how this horrible process works. He uses Carl Jung's idea of the shadow. That's all the parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we deny and repress. Our own feelings of guilt, of not being good enough, of being insignificant. We can't stand to see that darkness in ourselves, so we perform a neat psychological trick. We project it outward. We find another group, a scapegoat, and we pin all of our own rejected darkness onto them. They become the embodiment of everything that is wrong. They're dirty, they're dangerous, they're godless, they're evil. And then, by attacking and destroying that scapegoat, we feel like we are purifying the world of evil. In reality, we're just trying to destroy the parts of ourselves we can't face. Warfare becomes, as he puts it, a social ritual for purification. It's a twisted way to make ourselves feel righteous by annihilating an enemy we created.
All right, we've been way out in the stratosphere, talking about history and society and war, big, heavy topics. But for this final section, we're going to bring Becker's entire theory right back down to earth, right back to where it matters most, your life and my life. The final challenge is to take this powerful and, frankly, uncomfortable lens and turn it on ourselves.
This is the question. Becker believes this is probably the most important question any person can ever ask themselves. So think honestly about your own life, your job, your ambitions, your relationships, the things you're really proud of. To what degree are those things a conscious choice, an expression of your deepest, most authentic values? And to what degree are they, well, an unconscious strategy to earn that feeling of significance, to keep that terror of death locked away? Are you actually building a life, or are you just building a really good defense? Now, Becker isn't saying we can ever be totally free of this. We can't. But he insists that just becoming conscious of the game we're playing is the essential first step toward living a more authentic life.
Can you imagine that? Imagine if we all just dropped the act. If we could just admit to ourselves and even to each other, you know what?
deep down, I'm terrified of being insignificant and disappearing forever, and pretty much everything I do is an attempt to feel like my life matters. Becker says this honesty would be devastating at first. It would mean admitting that our culture, our religion, our politics, it isn't the one truth. It's just the particular hero system we happen to be born into. But it would also be incredibly liberating, because once you see the game, you can start to choose how you want to play. You can start to consciously pick your heroism instead of just having it assigned to you by default.
Becker closes his entire book not with another argument, but with this incredible poem by a woman named Marcia Lee Anderson, which just perfectly captures his whole thesis. The poem starts by asking us to imagine being stripped of all our defenses, our subtle complications. That's our character armor, that's our immortality project. Without them, it asks, who could possibly look at the raw truth of reality, the sun, without being terrified? Our whole system of defenses, our whole life's work, is our shelter against contemplation, our only refuge from the plain and clear truth of our situation. And in the poem lands on the very core of our paradox, the shining terror of despair. It's that moment of seeing with total clarity what our deepest need really is, the need to be free from the anxiety of death. And in the same moment, realizing that this need is how sharp and how impossible to feed. And why is it impossible? Because, as Becker has argued all along, it is life itself, the very act of being a conscious, living thing that awakens the terror of death in the first place. So we are caught. We're driven by this primal hunger that can never, ever be truly satisfied. And that right there is the tragic, the beautiful, and the inescapable truth of the human condition.